All right, everyone. Last looks. Quiet on set. Roll sound. Sound speed. Roll camera. Camera speed. Scene 1. Take 1. Market. And action. Hi, I'm Ed, the host of Savannah on Film, and we explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry and related fields. You can find us here on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. Welcome to another show of Savannah on Film. I am your host, Ed Susevich, and our purpose here is to explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry and related fields. We're here on WRUU 107.5 FM LP, Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. And we're welcoming to our show today a very talented guy. His resume is longer than most of ours. David Harland Rousseau.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for having me on.
You are an author, a screenwriter, storyboard artist, producer, director. You're a professor of foundation studies at SCAD.
Yes, that is correct.
Savannah College of Art and Design. Mm-hmm. Freelance writer, content developer. You've been a consultant, a mediator. What else have you done? Have you cured cancer yet?
No, not yet.
You're working on that. Okay.
Yeah, one of these days I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Yeah, I'm still working on that myself. So your accomplishments are just off the charts. Some of the things that you've done. You and I have worked together. We've worked in the 48-hour films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3 of them, I think.
Yes, the Suitcase Trilogy.
The Suitcase Trilogy.
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Gosh, I'm just going to go through a few things here, just list some of the things that you've achieved. You've been with the Savannah Film Commission, mm-hmm. Savannah Filmmakers, mm-hmm. Savannah Tourism, Knights of Columbus. You have written a bunch of stuff, and one of your most popular things is Storyboard Essentials, how to translate your story to the screen for film, TV, and other media. You've written Savannah Ghost, Haunts of the Hostess City, mm-hmm. Savannah Tavern Tales and Pubs Review. We talked about a lot of your movies here. Your Suitcase Trilogy is The Moss Man Cometh. Let's see, I guess I need to go in order, don't I?
Either way.
We had Indeed, Savior's Mule,
yep,
and Moss Man Cometh.
All very different films.
All very different films. And let's just go through, for those that don't know, that don't have the privilege of knowing you, just some of the things that you've accomplished and just some of the things that you've done with the Knoxville 24-Hour Film Festival. You were a winner in 2014 with A Matter of Pride, a short film that you did.
Yeah, that was a mockumentary. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we had an Audience Choice Award for that one.
Yes, you did. You had, and I'm skipping around a little bit here, the Idlewild International Festival of Cinema in California in 2017. You got a nomination for Best Short Film, mm-hmm. All Thumbs and Green.
Yep.
And let's see, you were Best Director of a Short for that also. You got Best Screenplay nomination. The list goes on and on and on. We have, in the 48-Hour Film Project, in 2016, we have All Thumbs and Green. Of course, you were nominated there for Best Writing, and which we're going to be talking about that in just a little bit.
Yeah.
You were a nominee in 2017 in the 48-Hour for the Best Use of Character for Indeed, mm-hmm. which is a very fun film that I got the privilege of working on.
That was a lot
with
of
you.
fun.
It really was. Some really wonderful performances there. Let's see. What else have you done? You've done just everything. And I've left some things out here, probably.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah. But needless to say, you know what you're talking about here. And you are very experienced in the film industry here. So what we're going to chat about now, I just got some questions. Let's just jump right into the writing process.
Sure.
What inspires you? What fills up that well of inspiration for you?
I think it depends on the genre. But the things that they all have in common, though, is that journey of character, like finding out where they're going to go. Every character should start out with a pretty boring existence and one that they're pretty frustrated by. And you need to make that character very uncomfortable and then take them through the steps to a point where they have some sort of realization, good or bad, but a definite change in that story arc. And that's what any good story will do.
True. So one of the things that writers deal with is writer's block sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Have you, of course, gone through that? Like, I'm a writer, so I understand that. And some of the stuff that you write is just really brilliant. I really love your writing. That's why I really wanted to have you on the show here. How do you deal with the writer's block?
There's a couple of feature-length screenplays I've been sitting on for a couple of years because I just can't get that character out of the corner I wrote them into. And in some cases like that, then it's best to just walk away from it and come back fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whenever I do hit that writer's block wall, I go for a walk or I look for other inspiration, things that have nothing to do with writing and nothing to do with a particular story, and in the hopes that that block will untie itself a little bit. Yeah, it's finding that one puzzle of, all right, I put this person into a difficult situation to get out of. Now, how do I make them not just have something fall into their lap, but give them a choices to make that they have to work themselves out of it. A lot of that tends to just following the character, listening to what the character needs and wants.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How do you find your own unique voice when you're writing? Every writer has their own voice, and through their characters and what they write, you see that voice. You eventually see it on screen. So how did you find your voice? What inspires you to write in that sense to help you find that voice?
I think a lesson I learned a long time ago is do your best to avoid stating the obvious. Like, for example, if you had a character who wants desperately to say to another character, I love you, write everything except that. And that's a good way to find the voice, because we rarely talk directly to one another. We tend to talk across one another when we have these discussions. So part of that voice is dealing with a lot of subtext and dealing with that sort of frustration that we all have and wanting to say something. And I think also trying to pay attention to realizing that the audience is smarter than you give them credit for.
Right.
They can connect the dots if you give them the dots to connect. You just don't want to draw it for them.
Right. You don't want to be too obvious. And some writers sometimes are trying to get from point A to point B, and they forget about that, there's C, D, and E that would make it much more interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes you skip around a lot.
Yes, out of order sometimes. And
Well, I like the concept, and it ties into acting as well. That the actor's job isn't necessarily to laugh or cry, and the same thing with the director and the writer. That's not our job, is laugh or cry on cue, as much as it is to get the audience to laugh and cry.
The movie we just worked on, which was Cello, yes, which did very well in the 48-hour film project. It
7 nominations, 4 wins.
Yes, which is congratulations once again on that. I told you I thought it was one of your best scripts.
Thank you.
And because it's the kind of writing that I really like. I do like all kinds of writing, but I like something that just reaches in, grabs that person's heart, holds on to it, and just goes for the jugular there, and actually kind of did go for the jugular a little bit.
Literally in one point there, yeah.
But it's that emotion. I mean, if you can capture somebody in your writing and in your characters, which you do very well, if you can get that emotion, then you've got them. You've got your audience, and they're hanging on. And I remember when we were at the awards ceremony and watching the film before the awards ceremony in the 48 this year, there were a lot of gasp in the room when a pivotal part of the movie happens, and I think there was definitely more than one. There was a lot of gasp, and so
I counted 3 and a murmur.
Okay, yeah.
It's weird when you go to these things as a writer or a director or producer, whatever role you're in. I tend to watch the audience more than I watch the film, because by the time it screens, we've seen it. We've lived it, we know it. And so it's more fun to watch the audience reaction. Just kind of step back. Yeah,
you're like that person in the theater that has seen the movie 5 times, and you're like, just wait till when they come around that corner, and you just can't wait to see that. But to see that reaction, to see something that you've created out of nothing. Mm-hmm. You've breathed life into characters, put them in sometimes impossible situations, and seeing how they navigate through that and how they grow as characters, or in some cases how they don't, even just to the fruition of it, and seeing the completed film it's amazing. When we were watching Cello, I was very impressed by it. I think it was one of your best works, and
Thanks.
Really enjoyed it. You've done some other films and one of them I was looking at, I made a few notes here, but one of the ones that I really liked was called All Thumbs and Green. I thought there was a lot of stuff boiling under the surface, so to speak, but there was I think part of your voice, and from what I got from watching your films, is there's kind of I don't know if the word I'm looking for is like a sweetness. There's kind of a down home kind of beneath all of that. There's this really, I think maybe it's partly Savannah influence or something. I don't know, but it's really just a very kind situation, a dialogue between people. And Cello wasn't as kind. No. It was definitely a departure, but it was also a great departure. So I guess my question is, or statement is, that was a very touching film. I liked what was boiling beneath the surface there, what the characters didn't say. Sometimes is so important than what they actually do say. And like you said earlier, you don't have to spell it out. You don't have to connect every single dot. Movies that do that don't let us imagine. When we go and we spend, however long the film is, we want to be transported to another time, another place, or another situation, and we want to become those characters. We want to sympathize with them, and that's something that a good writer, I think, does very well.
Well, I think to bring the audience up to speed about these two different productions, because you and I, we know them, but a lot of people listening may not.
I'm sorry. Yes.
No, it's okay. But the All Thumbs and Green is about this widow who's having a difficult time starting over again, and there's a greenskeeper who comes into her life, and he's fixing up the yard a bit, and then they meet, and a lot of that you can tell by the interaction that the mama set that up,
right?
And that the daughter's not having it. The daughter's not ready to go out and date again.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't tell how it ends, but that is the gist of the narrative. But a lot of the things with this particular narrative is having the people, because it was a greenskeeper, so a lot of the language had to deal with dying plants and aspects of the yard that are in the shade, and things may never grow there.
I'm trying to delicately say what they're referring to, but I think our audience can figure that out. Yeah.
But it's about someone who knows that there's still life in there, but isn't sure how to bring things back to life in herself. And so that crosstalk through metaphor creates a really nice subtext between all that,
Right.
There's a part, for example, when the greenskeeper is asking the daughter, and these are all people in their 40s and up, you know, because that's most everybody I know.
Yeah.
But so you write what you know. But in this
Right.
case, there was a point where the greenskeeper, the mother had to get them to start talking, had brought out some sweet tea, a very southern thing,
Oh, totally, totally.
or lemonade, I think it was. But either way, she has them sit down and have a conversation. And so they start talking, and he looks over at her at one point, and he asks, "Ain't you thirsty?" And she's taken aback by this because, I mean, that's a very simple line on the surface.
Right.
But
I declare.
yeah, but on
very
her
southern.
part is like, what? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Like she had
Hello.
to think about what he was saying. Now, Cello, to talk about the departure, Cello is about this Croatian drifter who goes looking for his sister, and he leaves destruction in his wake. So,
Yeah.
and the ending to that will make people gasp, and has. So, but that we won't spoil.
Yeah, there's a sinister twist to that movie, which I liked. I thought it was very interesting. Let's just chat about some other ones that
Sure.
that you've done. Let's talk about, well, the first time I got to work with you was Indeed with the
Indeed.
48.
Yeah,
And-
traveling salesman.
Yep.
Mhm.
We filmed that on location at a friend of ours' house.
Yep.
In South Carolina.
Yeah, Aaron Paderewski, who's in his own right a brilliant actor, and
He got nominated for Best Director in the 48
in
this
the
year
48 he
for
did.
cello.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First
time out, so
first time out.
congrats,
And the first time I
Aaron.
stepped away from the reins of writing and directing for the 48, and you know, he
How
did a
is that to
fantastic job.
wear more than one hat? I know sometimes, especially when you're acting, directing, it's difficult. I mean,
It is. I have discovered through my own trial and error process that I can write and act, I can write and direct, but I can't direct and act. There's too much that going on
right.
where I can really enjoy one process or the other on the day, on the set. Yeah.
Because I think sometimes one may miss things. You know, you may miss
do.
certain things that, you know, because you're trying to focus on everything and you're trying to see it from so many different angles and act it.
Well, and being an actor means being in the moment, and I know
Right.
for those who can do it well, meaning directing and acting,
Yes.
I admire them greatly because, you know, how can you be in the moment and still have all these other things that you're aware of, like what are we shooting next, what's the next setup,
Right.
you know, man, I hope that camera's in focus.
Right.
You know, so you're thinking of everything except living that person's life, that character's life, and so it's very, very challenging to do it. You could do it for a small role,
Right.
but anything that requires any depth is
is hard because you as an actor you have to get to that place like you said and you have to live in that moment of that character, that particular scene.
Find the truth.
Exactly, you got to find the truth there, and if you're searching, you can't search for that truth when you're worrying about lights and other thing, you know. And
Yeah, you see like one thing out of the corner of your eye that isn't right, and you're completely
like, oh,
out
man.
of role. You
my
know.
lighting is just off. I don't know what am I going to do.
Yeah.
And let's see. Indeed was, like I said, the first film I got to work with you guys on. My first time really out the gate, being a sound mixer, and I got nominated, which blew me away.
Did a great job, man.
Well, thank you. Patrick, in fact, I was sitting in a restaurant with my wife, and he texted me or Facebook messaged me, I can't remember, and he's like, "You got nominated for Best Sound." And I literally dropped my phone and yelled. I was in the restaurant. My wife looks at me, she's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, I just got nominated for Best Sound." I was like, "Oh no." And I actually got to win sound design on another one that we did, which was Mossman Cometh.
Mossman, was it
Was it Mossman?
No.
No. Yes, I think it was. In the Knoxville
That was Savior's Mule.
Savior's Mule. Okay, I'm sorry. They're totally different films, but you know,
Yeah.
but they're that was a fun movie too.
Yeah, absolute mockumentary. That one was a challenge for writing because we wrote it specifically for the 100 Words Film Festival
Right.
in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the entire script was exactly 100 spoken words.
Oh, I remember that on set, and you're like, okay, we're counting the words, and
Yeah, and that's tricky because you've got to have a good script supervisor, and everybody's got to watch each other, and you know, and we actually chose a role where all the characters were a little awkward, a little dorky,
right,
you know,
right.
and that kind of helped with that a little bit there. You know, the downside of it being, and the reason we went mockumentary was because you can't really. It's very difficult to flesh out a full narrative with a conflict that gets resolved in a short film. It's
Right.
difficult to begin with, but even more difficult
is.
when you have 100 words Exactly.
That just seemed, from a writing challenge, is exciting and terrifying.
It is, yeah. And then Savior's Mule was a slapstick one that we did for the
Right.
7-day. For that one, we got best genre for slapstick. And it's the
Right.
first time I had done a slapstick. I'd done a couple comedies before, lighthearted stuff, but slapstick we went long that shoot, super long, because
we
setup.
had one day that turned into a night that turned into another day, I think, and
something I don't normally do, but it was
but there was that one shot at the end that, if I don't want to spoil it for people that haven't seen it, but that one shot, we had one take. Yeah, and there was no coming back from that shot. We had to get it right, and it took a lot of planning and worked brilliantly. It was hilarious, and it worked really well.
And we had rain delays and
yes, we did.
Bullfrog right outside the door that wouldn't shut up.
That's true. The bullfrog. I was like, okay, I'm hearing bullfrog. We've got bullfrog here.
Hold for bullfrog. Good luck with that. Hold for
bullfrog. Yeah. We couldn't hold much longer.
No,
we'd still be working on it. Now, Moss Man was, I think, a year ago. Was it around August? Almost.
Yeah, we shot it in August. That last year. We worked on three films back to back.
Yeah, the trilogy. The Suitcase Trilogy.
For those that don't know, the Suitcase Trilogy, we call it that because we Indeed,
right,
which was the first of the so-called Suitcase Trilogy. It was about a traveling salesman,
right? Luke Beardsley,
who he comes in to these people's lives, and it's something of a mystery as to why he's there in the first place. And he's talking about the place as if he'd been there before, but everything's changed.
It's so mystical. I love that.
It's a very mystical thing, and basically you find that he's trying to right a wrong, over time. And so the suitcase appeared there, and then it appeared again in Savior's Mule. We shot next, and then we shot Moss Man. And it showed up in Savior's Mule because Savior's Mule was a slapstick comedy about a group of well-meaning church parishioners who are trying to save the church's mission trip to Costa Rica by smuggling cocaine.
Because that happens.
Ways. Yeah, because
it was hilarious.
The absurdity of
exactly.
It is,
you're like, no one would do that. Yeah. It's
why are they bringing it there when it's never mind?
Yeah.
So the suitcase makes a notable appearance in that one, and then we managed to salvage. I was amazed that we were able to do it.
Right.
But it took a few hours of tender loving care to salvage the suitcase from that slapstick comedy, and we used it again in Moss Man.
Right. That it was almost a supporting character in the movie there.
Yeah. Well, it certainly wasn't Savior's Mule.
Yeah, no, definitely. It did what it needed to do. Now in Moss Man, I remember it's a day just like today, extremely hot. A typical Savannah. We were in the boonies somewhere, and in an undisclosed location, and
pretty much.
I didn't hydrate enough, and I learned a lesson on that one. To always hydrate, especially in Savannah. I should have known better.
Oh yeah.
And but it was very, very fun movie. They were all fun.
And Patrick had to wear a ghillie suit the whole time.
Yes, he did.
He was sweating like a hog.
He is such a trooper and such a great actor, Patrick Roper.
He is.
And he was our lead guy in cello also.
Yeah, he was. He just wrapped on Emperor.
Wow.
Yeah. So he just wrapped today, early this morning on Emperor. So you'll be seeing him in that one too. That's shooting in Savannah right now. Feature length film.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. Can't wait to see that when that comes out.
Yeah. About a year from now. That should be out.
Yeah, it's so funny in the film industry. You film so many things, and then by the time they come out, you're like, gosh, I almost forgot that I was doing that. That was a whole part of my life that was so intense and so wonderful, or, whatever your situation is. And then time goes by, and then before you know it, you're like, you've got 3 or 4 films coming out, and you're like, oh man, this is awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
and you forget, like there's a lot of things that I've forgotten that I've done.
Right. When we're talking about character building, and what's like some of the most important aspects you think of that when you're building that character in your writing?
Find a weakness.
Excellent. Yeah.
A wound, if you will.
And exploit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter. I mean, sometimes that is, like in All Thumbs in Green, the weakness was obvious. She's not ready to get back into.
She's not ready to take that chance yet.
The dating thing. In Moss Man Cometh, this absurd mockumentary about this middle-aged guy who's going out into the woods and pretending to be this mythical creature, but he's so good at it that a bunch of hunters want to track him down now and have found him. And so that there's a situation there where hubris winds up being the weakness of both parties, both the hunters and of the guy who's out there squatching.
Squashing.
And then so we get that with cello. Boy, that's
a different ball game.
It's a different ball game altogether. That's very super dark.
And it's got so many twists and turns, and I love that.
It's difficult to say what the weakness is there. I would have to say that the weakness of the characters winds up being, just this hyper focus that the drifter has on finding his sister.
Right.
Yeah. And the destruction that he leaves in his wake in order to find her.
Right, he's essentially a predator.
Pretty much.
But then the question is, who is the predator? Or is there more than one? There's a lot of interesting turns. So how important for you when you're writing a character is it to know what actor is going to portray it? I mean, you don't necessarily know. I know because you write it first, right? And then...
Yeah, that's a good question, but it depends. If you're writing a spec script...
Mm-hmm.
You want to just think about the character itself. You don't want to try and say, "Ooh, I would love for so and so to play this character," because then the problem with that becomes that you wind up having being too focused on trying to get a particular actor or wanting them to do that, and then it limits your writing. You just have to think about the motivations of the character itself as they're going through their life in this moment in time. But with things like the number of timed festivals, and just about everything you've mentioned is a timed festival in one way or the other, with direct competition festivals like the 24-hour film festival, the 48, the 54, the 7-day, all of those are done within prescribed time limits, where you don't get the elements, you don't get the genre until the day that the thing kicks off. And you have that much time to write, shoot, edit, submit a film. So with a 48 one, 2 days, that's it. That's all you got. 24 one, we had 1 day to do that. In things like that, then, yeah, absolutely, I want to know who the cast is before I start writing. Yeah, and I want to know the cast before I start writing, because I want to use their voices. And when you only have 24, 48 hours to make a short film, that's 4 to 7 minutes.
Right. You
want to write characters where the actors can just be themselves. They don't have to overthink it. They can find that truth in the moment. They can respond to that. They can find their objectives and interact with one another. So yes, in that case, knowing who the actors are is vital for those timed competitions.
Are there any pet peeves that you have when you're writing? Are there topics you won't write, or has there been anything that you've written and you've thought, well, maybe I shouldn't have written that. Maybe I shouldn't try to tackle that, or the vice versa. Maybe I should have.
I don't find anything off limits when it comes to writing, in and of itself. But I know me,
right?
And I know, my own truth as a writer. I know where that comes from, and so even when I go dark, whether I'm doing a slapstick comedy or a mockumentary or something, a lighthearted drama or even a super dark drama like Cello, I know the truths that I want to tell in that, and I know where the voice comes from when I'm writing that narrative. So the subject matter doesn't bother me as much as long as I know that the characters that I'm writing for, that I can breathe life into them.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the important thing. And if I'm enthusiastic about it, at any given time, out of the year, at any given time, out of my life, I can be super enthusiastic about one narrative and really ho-hum about another one, and a year later, it's reversed. Yeah.
Right.
Because, like Indeed and All Thumbs in Green, the tone of those films is very, very similar.
Yes, yes.
And I think we all agreed when we came to Cello that everybody wanted to go dark.
I've been waiting for a film that's been dark. I've done a lot of films, and I'm really excited about the ones that I was involved with, but I wanted something that was daring.
Yeah.
I want to see more than just comedies. I want to see films that are tackling those deeper subjects. And I know in the 48 this year, we saw, I think, a better share of more serious films. That
yes,
there were a few that were really went to some dark places.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, it's just I think it's just richer. It's just a richer experience. And for our film community, it's good to make those comedies. Everything has its place.
Yeah.
But we need a voice for those darker films. We need films that break the mold, mm-hmm. and that break the wheel once in a while. The thing about learning the whole process of making films is sometimes to throw all that out the window, and just to an extent,
Yeah.
And going to that darker place, I thought actually worked very, very well for Cello, and I think it paid off really well.
I think, and thank you. I think some of the tricky parts about doing films like this for competitions like the 48 is a lot of the message films tend to win.
Yeah.
And those have their place too. But this time around, I think we were really wanting a dark, high concept film, meaning if we told you the log line, could you see it on the movie poster?
Right.
And it worked well enough where the poster designer,
which our poster won, or your poster won.
Yeah, well, I didn't design it, but
I mean for your film,
but
yes.
for the film,
yes.
and that one did win.
But it pretty much is that's looks like it's a cleaver, isn't it?
It's a cleaver, yeah.
Yeah, so you're like, oh gosh, this isn't a romantic comedy.
Yeah,
it's already a serious tone.
You can tell right in the beginning just from the character and how he's driving around that it's going to a very interesting place, and especially when he goes to a barbecue stand as a lead where he has to find his sister. He knows these people knows where his sister is.
Right.
And he pulls this cleaver right off the barbecue stand, and he's like, this is good pig sticker.
I know.
Pig splitter.
And Patrick did such a wonderful job with the dialect there,
the Croatian dialect.
The Croatian dialogue. That's from my backyard, basically, so where I hail from, and all that. So we're going to talk about one thing real quick. Since we're kind of in a little bit of darker place here.
Sure, why not?
Let's talk about political correctness in films. Now, you're a professor, and you've come across some people, I'm sure, where they want to write a certain way. You know, how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that as a writer, as a filmmaker, going to being politically correct? You obviously don't want to offend, but you want to expand people's horizons, but not at the expense of the character, not at the expense of...
I mean, I think that you can write a story that is clear and a story that is fair and honest. And I think if you're writing it from those perspectives, clear, fair, and honest,
okay,
then you can create something that's worth watching. And I think that's the big part of it. The idea of political correctness tends to have a negative tone anyway. It's just the term in and of itself. And it leans a bit towards a feeling of censorship,
right?
That you really just don't want to offend anyone. I mean, Cello certainly could offend a lot of people with some of the themes in it.
It could,
and I think that for some people that could be a very polarizing experience. That film,
right?
But we didn't shy away from it, and at the same time, I think if you there are certainly a lot of filmmakers out there who write to be patently offensive about it, about any given subject, and it going into it as an audience. Going in it's going to be patently offensive.
But
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's okay. I was just thinking that if you know that going in there, but then there are some folks who, I think are doing it specifically not to be patently offensive for humor's sake or for irony or for satire, but to be disparaging of different people, and then that's falls into that category of not being fair.
Right. I think you need to be. My personal opinion is I think that you need to be fair about it. Like you said, you need to be true to the characters, but not so politically correct that you make your characters almost really not a character. They're almost a shell of what they need to be. Sometimes you have to write them certain ways. They're just, sometimes it calls for a male lead or a female lead or, and sometimes it doesn't, but depending on it, you don't want to bend over backwards at the expense of your character so that your character doesn't get to live out their true potential in that.
If any writer, any writer, any director, even any actor is so worried about what everyone else on the planet is going to think about your performance or your writing,
right?
If that's where you're coming from in your writing, for example, then I don't know how you can tell truth with that. I don't know, because think about it like just break it down like a real simple area too. Let's say you are going to a party, and you're at a party and everybody's around you having conversations, and you do everything you can to just appease everyone.
Right.
Your conversations aren't going to be terribly interesting.
Right. You'll have a safe conversation that won't offend anybody, but no one's going to be challenged intellectually.
Yeah. And no one's going to remember you either. Now, there's a line to be drawn. You don't want to antagonize people. Right. You want to challenge people, but you don't want to antagonize them.
Exactly. And that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. We want to all learn. We want to learn, live in everybody's else's shoes, see their perspective, see what they're going through, but not at the point of degrading that person, certainly. And that's should never be the intention. I mean, there's
truisms, across the board, and those truisms are sometimes seen as stereotypes, but growing up in New England, I could tell you all sorts of truisms about people from New England, and those become stereotypes about those people, but there's truth there.
Right. True. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to go hit a break real quick. So everybody grab you a bottle of water or whatever it is, and we will be right back with David Harland Rousseau.
WRUU listeners like you crave exploration and discovery. That's how we can offer your business or organization a unique way to separate your name from the clutter inherent in commercial radio advertising. Underwriting on non-commercial WRUU will make your name stand out because we allow only a limited number of sponsorships per hour. Your message will be reaching listeners who are actively engaged in programs that demand their attention. Let our team build a customized plan to meet your marketing goals by linking your name to our unique music and talk programs. For more information, email underwriting@wruu.org.
This portion of WRUU LP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Brighter Day Natural Foods, offering produce, vitamins, and supplements, and a deli and juice bar. Brighter Day is located at 1102 Bull Street at the south end of Forsyth Park. More information available at 912-236-4703 or brighterdayfoods.com.
Telfair Museums present The Open Road, Photography and the American Road Trip, celebrating road culture through the lens of 19 photographers, through September 3rd at the Jepson Center for the Arts on Telfair Square in Savannah. Related programs include a free family day on August 4th. For more information, visit telfair.org.
And we're back. We're talking with David Harland Rousseau here on WRUU LP Savannah, Georgia, 107.5, and worldwide. You can hear us live now on www.wruu.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul, and we're going to talk about storyboards.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting topic.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to let you kind of lead on this. Is there anything specific?
Yeah. First from the Office of Shameless Self-Promotion.
No, there's nothing wrong with that. You're proud of what you do.
Oh, absolutely. I mentioned Emperor a little bit ago, and I am in the midst of doing storyboards for Emperor here in Savannah. So that's a lot of fun. Very challenging too. That's a big honor for this feature film, shooting Civil War era movie about the life of Shields Green. So that's a good bit of fun. And last year, I wound up doing storyboards for Little Mermaid, which should be out, I think, this month.
Right.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's coming out this month. So, very different movies, but both period pieces, and it's always a good challenge to draw that. For me, storyboards tend to be production boards, so they're not super polished. They're straight up. They're down and dirty. It's framing the shot. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to storyboards, it's always about framing height, angle, and movement in there. As long as you're communicating that, they don't have to be super pretty. They just have to be clear. Yeah.
Like Don Henley once said, I don't look good, I just have to be clear.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. But the book that you had published along with Benjamin Reed Phillips is Storyboard Essentials, SCAD Creative Essentials, How to Translate Your Story to the Screen for Film, TV, and Other Media. Mm-hmm. And it's back in the top 100 on, I think, 3 Amazon charts. Is that correct?
Yeah, it keeps creeping in and out of several top 100 lists of Amazon. Today, right before the show, I checked, it's at number 5 on their Kindle bestseller list.
That's right, Kindle.
Yeah, on one of their lists anyways. And that book has done surprisingly well. Interesting story about that. When the word came out for Design Press, which is the publishing arm of SCAD, they were working with, at the time, Watson Guptill, which is a division of Random House. So technically the book is published through Random House. They were asking for people to come up with ideas for various books. And ours, they had about 4 people set up. One person dropped out on the day that I called in with a proposal for storyboarding essentials. And Jackie Meyer, who packaged the book for us, a fantastic person. I love her to death. She listened very intently, and lucky for us, her husband was a storyboard artist, and so that was a subject that was dear to her. And once I got the pitch across the transom, I got off the phone with her and I called Benjamin Reed Phillips. Ben is a buddy of mine. I've known him for, 10 or more years. Real good friend. Very, very talented storyboard artist himself. And we decided to split the labor a little bit, where I would do the lion's share of the writing and he would do a good bit of the artwork, and then vice versa. Mm-hmm. So in certain areas where he's stronger, like in storyboarding for animation, for example, he took the lead on that. And then I was doing diagrams and other drawings for the book. We intentionally chose to, because so many books are these coffee table books you find at Barnes & Noble or wherever, your big booksellers, these coffee table books, the art of.
Yes.
Yeah, and then you look at the art of, and there are all these super polished boards that could be hanging on somebody's wall. Yeah, and they're gorgeous work. And we wanted to demystify storyboarding a little bit. And so a lot of the artwork we have in there, we talk about the process. We talk about how to break a script down for storyboarding purposes.
Right.
And we actually brought in some student work that was very quick student work, just so that people could see the artwork doesn't have to be absolutely polished at all.
Right.
And that book did well enough where about a year or so ago, they acquired the intellectual property rights, international publishing rights, I should say, to have the book published in complex Chinese.
Oh, wow.
And this year sometime it should be published in simplified Chinese. And then in about a year, roughly, it'll actually be published in Korean.
Wow.
So Chinese and Korean editions of this.
That is pretty awesome. So it's worldwide.
It is worldwide. It was
multilingual.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
I'll be a co-author of a book that I can't read.
There's an excuse to learn Korean.
Yeah, or Chinese.
Or
absolutely.
Chinese, yes, definitely.
It's interesting too because I had to reformat the book slightly to accommodate the differences of writing styles and language. Yeah.
So, I think storyboarding is such an essential part of just the pre-planning of a movie. I mean, the pre-production, because I'm a visual person, so if I can look at a storyboard, I can visually see, and so it makes it real for me, and it brings takes a lot of those questions out of it. Still leaves room for interpretation.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it's a very vital thing.
It's the thing about storyboards, that you can think of it this way: it is a very expensive writing tool,
Yes.
but a very inexpensive production tool.
Very good, very good.
In that, you can take a script, and I've worked with directors before who said, okay, well, here's the script, but we're having a hard time seeing it.
Right.
Yeah. And in the process of coming to somebody like me who, like, because I also direct, because I also write, I can listen to what the director of photography or the director or the producers are saying,
Right.
and very quickly just get it. I understand their language. I understand what they're trying to capture, and very quickly draw out a number of boards for them to review. And in that process of doing storyboards, that you discover, wait a minute, maybe we need an extra couple of shots over here that
Right.
aren't on the shot list, or
Something
maybe
you hadn't thought about. Yeah.
we really do need to get that shot of those two people over there.
Exactly.
If for no other reason than to think not just about what you're shooting on the day, but going a little bit further and saying editorially, when this goes to the editor, it does help to give the director an opportunity to think about how it might be cut in the room, and allows you to get certain setups.
Right.
So if I'm doing a storyboard and I see a particular angle, and I'm boarding, and I get to a certain point, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, this is a jump cut. Oh, well, if I go and insert this same reaction into this spot in between the two, that saves the edit. But it also allows the director of photography, the director, and the crew to figure out production-wise, we can use this setup a number of different ways. We're not just doing it one time for this one look. We can reuse this setup and save ourselves some production costs.
Okay. I want to ask you just a few more things about working in film.
Sure.
As we're getting close to wrapping up here at 5:00, and
Hour goes by quick.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's so much more. We're going to have to probably have you back some other time.
That's fine.
To discuss some more stuff here, because this is quite fascinating. You've had different careers. What steps did you take to prepare you for film? I know you've worked in television.
I have, yeah.
And radio.
Yeah.
And,
I want to sidetrack that question a little, just a little. Same theme, but different one. I would have to say that for people who are, young folks who are listening, or anybody that's listening, I was interested in film when I was little, but I didn't see a lot of options where I was growing up in this tiny little town, which is probably why a lot of my themes are rural themes. A lot of my subjects take place in rural settings, because that's what I know.
Right.
But I didn't see a lot of opportunities, in that area. I didn't know about them, and my parents are wonderful working class people, and so they're super supportive. They didn't exactly know how to enter that, so I deferred that dream, that pursuit, like so many of us do.
Yes, we've deferred a lot.
We defer a lot, and so if you know that's your passion, especially in this day and age with internet and all these other things, there's no excuse for technology being accessible and very democratic in that sense that you can get your hands on it, and shoot on something on your smartphone. When we start talking about that. Just start the process and go from that. But to answer your question specifically, I'd always been tap dancing around it. I got in the small acting gigs here and there. I got SAG eligibility because I was bumped up on a set as an extra, and they needed someone to say a few lines, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. So I got Taft-Hartley'd into SAG. And then when I was in television news for several years, I learned my way around a camera and how to frame a shot, and could always draw. And so I'd done storyboards here and there. And so it was a very, very circuitous route to get to where I am. But I have to say that just about every gig I've gotten in film has been because somebody knew me. They knew my work ethic, they knew my skill set, they knew my personality, and they knew that they were willing to take a risk on someone with minimal experience, first starting out. And that's how I got the storyboarding gig that I have now, is exactly like that. And it's something that I also try and instruct my students, at SCAD is, make those connections, show up to work, be there early, be the last one to leave, and be
if you're on time, you're late.
If you're on time, you're late. And be the person that's asking legitimate questions and is just listening more than you're speaking. And producing good work, you're going to do well because people will respect you as a person, and then they'll take that chance on you to give you that break that you need.
Well, you segued into one of my final questions there, which is great because I definitely wanted to ask it. So what about actors? What advice would you give them?
Actors
that are coming up and coming, that are getting their feet wet, right now. And
that's a fantastic question. Learn your craft. Yeah,
and practice.
Take classes. Produce your own content. I just talked about shooting stuff on your iPhone. So find someone. If you can't write, find someone who can. There's student films. SCAD does a lot of them. For example, that gives a good opportunity to at least experience that a little bit. Take acting classes. Read up on it. Study films. When you watch a movie, watch the performances and think about it when you watch it. Think about why did this actor make this choice here?
Right.
I heard what the dialogue is, but why did they make this choice? The other thing too that happens is that it kind of goes. It's common sense, is practice your craft. But the other thing that's really important is listen and be humble. There's a lot of people out there who burn a lot of bridges because they think they deserve that big break.
There's no entitlement in the film industry. No. We all and one of the things that I'm big on is passing on what I've learned.
Yeah.
And I don't know everything, but I learn every day in every film I've been on, which is another question I had, which is related to this, is from the different films that you've worked on, what have you learned successively from working on these films? And it also ties into the acting question. Yes,
as far as that goes. So they're all kind of related. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Good one.
I wouldn't have gotten anywhere if I weren't surrounding myself with people who are way more talented than I am. I just happened to be the guy that was able to bring everybody together.
And you got to be able, I think, to trust your team.
You have to trust your team,
and you trust in their abilities and their work ethic, and
that ties back into the acting question too. And it's really important for actors. You have to trust your scene partner. You have to trust the director. And if you don't, then you're going to come off as the arrogant one in the room.
Right.
You're going to be giving somebody else line readings, and you don't want to do that. You want to have feedback with your actors, but let them do their job, let them shine, and you do your job, and push off of each other through that performance and finding that truth in the moment.
I think it was once said that you're only as good as your last performance. You know, and that's you can walk in with a head full of I'm the best there is, and totally miss the boat on your performance.
The minute you walk in there with the I'm the best there is attitude. Now, you have to have confidence because it's a hard business. This is less than 1% of people are actually making a living on a regular basis acting. So you've got to push yourself in that direction to have the confidence to keep trying and not give up. But you can't be walking around like you're the best one in the room, because as soon as you do that,
then it's over.
It's over. It's over. No one's going to want to work with you.
You've painted yourself in a corner, and you never want to do that.
No.
You always want to make sure that you're keeping a good rapport with everybody that you work in the industry. We're not all going to get along, but we're all going to cross paths, especially in such a big city, but such a small city as Savannah. A thriving film community, so many talented people on so many different levels. Mm-hmm. And we're all learning at some point. We're all still learning.
You never stop.
You never stop. And you should pursue that passion that you have. And I'm a podcaster. I've been doing that for 10 years. And one of the podcasters that I draw inspiration from said recently that just hit record. Just start recording. Just start doing. Don't wait until your movie is Academy Award ready. Do your work, do your pre-planning and everything, but make that film. Go to that acting class, learn what you need to do.
Take the beating.
Yeah, be friends with the casting director in town, or whoever you need to be, learn your craft, learn everything, be all about it, live it, breathe it, and you'll end up reaping rewards that that you won't believe. You'll look back and say, I can't believe how far I've come in so short of a time.
I think too, and I know we're getting super close, aren't we?
Yeah, we were getting close.
I think along those lines too, that when you were talking about, the casting, you mentioned casting director, and casting directors are friendly, but they have a job. They have a job to do, and it's a hard job to do.
It's difficult.
It's really, really hard. They're looking at 3,000 headshots. They're boiling that down to 30 people to go in for a first read, and then maybe 10 to get it. Who knows? But the point in all of this is that everybody wants you to succeed. There isn't anybody out there that wants you to fail, but they want you to come prepared, and they want you to be ready to do your work on the day.
Right.
They want you to do well, but they want you to know your work.
Well, David, I want to thank you for really enlightening our listeners today, everybody online, everybody that's listening to the radio station here. David Harland Rousseau, a man of many, many talents, and
Thanks, Ed.
We will be talking again, and hopefully we'll be working again soon.
Absolutely.
And Academy Awards next time, right?
Let's hope.
Let's hope. This is Savannah on Film, and I just one last thing I want to let you know that we want to feature film professionals at different levels. So if you're listening and you're in the industry, I'd love to talk to you too. Savannah on Film is a voice for the Savannah film industry. You can email us at savannaonfilm@gmail.com. I'm your host, Ed Susevich, and you have been listening to Savannah on Film on WRUU.LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. You have been listening to another episode of Savannah on Film, where we give a voice to the Savannah film community. Please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. This program was originally broadcast on 107.5 FM in Savannah, Georgia, and worldwide on www.wruu.org. Join us next time for more intriguing insights into the vibrant Savannah film community here at Savannah on Film.